1964D. This 1964D Lincoln penny almost slipped through history unnoticed, until one shocking discovery revealed it could be worth up to $1.3 million. And the craziest part? It looks almost identical to the pennies you've been holding your entire life. Tonight, I'm about to show you the tiny, hidden details that transformed an ordinary coin into a once-in-a-generation treasure. It all started with a collector in Colorado who bought a small jar of pennies at a garage sale. Nothing special. Just a dusty plastic jar buried under old tools. But when he opened it, one coin caught his eye. Something about the color, the strike, the sharpness of the details. He almost tossed it aside. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because this single 1964D penny wasn't like the others. It wasn't supposed to exist in this state, with this error, under these conditions. And the deeper experts looked, the stranger the story became. It was as if the coin whispered its own forgotten history, a history tied to one of the most chaotic years in U.S. mint production. Back in 1964, the mint was under immense pressure. Silver prices were rising. Coins were disappearing into hordes. Production skyrocketed. Mistakes slipped through. Some were tiny, others were catastrophic. But this one? This one was different. Collectors had never seen a 1964D penny with these characteristics before. And when the grading company confirmed the truth, dealers were stunned. Phones rang nonstop. High-end buyers demanded a chance to bid. And whispers spread across conventions like wildfire. $1 million penny, discovered in a jar worth $2. But that was only the beginning. Because the mystery behind this 1964D Lincoln penny goes far deeper than one lucky find. Every expert who examined it noticed something unusual, a strike so sharp it seemed impossible for normal circulation. The fields looked almost proof-like. The lettering had a razor-edge quality never seen on normal Denver strikes from that year. It appeared to be part of an unauthorized early die test, or perhaps a prototype that should have been destroyed. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on it. And one private buyer even hinted he would pay well over $1 million if another specimen ever surfaced. But here's the twist: no one knows how many of these rare 1964D errors are still out there. They could be hiding in old coffee cans, cigar boxes, junk drawers, or even in a forgotten change jar sitting somewhere in your home. Just the idea sent ripples through the numismatic world. People who had never cared about pennies suddenly became treasure hunters. But what happened next raised the stakes even higher. A retired mint employee came forward. Quiet man. Never sought attention. But he revealed something that rewrote everything. In 1964, Denver ran a series of experimental strikes during a late-night shift. These coins were never meant for circulation. Some were destroyed. Some vanished. And according to him, a few slipped out accidentally. The room went silent when he spoke. Because if that was true, this extraordinary penny wasn't just rare, it was the numismatic equivalent of a ghost. A ghost worth over $1 million. But here's where the story takes an unbelievable turn. Two more unusual 1964D pennies surfaced, both showing eerily similar characteristics. Sharp rims. Deep details. A strange, almost satin-like finish. Not identical, but clearly related. And suddenly, the race began. Collectors across America started ripping open old penny rolls from the 50s and 60s. Dealers began offering cash for unsearched bank boxes. People who had forgotten about their childhood coin jars went digging through them again. Because everyone realized one truth: the next lucky person to find this hidden treasure could change their entire life. But what makes this coin worth such an astonishing amount? What tiny detail separates a common 1964D penny from one worth over $1 million? Here's where you must pay very close attention. Most 1964D pennies are weakly struck. The steps of the Lincoln Memorial? Soft. The lettering? A little mushy. The rim? Slightly rounded. But the $1 million specimen, and the other two that surfaced, shows something wildly different. Lincoln's coat lines are sharp. The date looks engraved, not stamped. The mint mark D stands tall and bold with no spread or distortion. The rims are squared off like proof coins. And the fields have a strange, reflective glow that experts still debate today. But what happened next shocked graders around the country. The coin's surfaces showed no signs of normal handling, as if it escaped the mint directly into storage. No scratches. No dents. No fingerprints. Just pure, untouched brilliance. That condition alone pushed it into legendary territory. Collectors were stunned. Some even said they felt chills holding it under the grating lamp. One man described it as the most mysterious penny I've ever seen. And every time the coin was displayed at a show, crowds gathered silently around it, whispering to each other, could another one be out there? Could someone find one in pocket change tomorrow? Attention reset. Because here's the part that nobody expected. A man found a strange 1964 penny while sorting through his late father's belongings. He didn't think much of it, until a local dealer nearly turned pale when he saw the strike quality. That coin hasn't gone to auction yet, but experts believe it could match or surpass the first one in value. If that coin crosses the auction block, it could push past $1.3 million and make headlines worldwide. Imagine that for a moment. A simple penny, the same coin millions of us used to buy bubble gum, newspapers, or a morning coffee, suddenly becoming one of the most valuable small coins ever created in America. The story almost feels impossible, until you remember that the greatest treasures are often hiding in plain sight. So now the question becomes, could you be the next person to find one? Here's exactly what to look for. First, it must be a 1964 penny with a D mint mark under the date. Next, examine the details under bright light or a magnifier. Look for unusually sharp lettering. Focus on Liberty. The edges should look knife-sharp, not rounded. Lincoln's profile should appear deep, almost sculpted. His coat lines should stand out clearly, with no blurring. Then look at the rim. A normal 1964 penny has a soft, slightly rounded rim. The valuable one has a crisp, squared-off edge like a metal or proof strike. Finally, examine the fields, the flat areas of the coin. If they glow, shimmer, or show an unusual reflective sheen unlike any penny you've seen, you may be holding something extraordinary. Something the mint never intended the public to see. Most people will miss these details. Most people will overlook the penny sitting in their drawer. But not you. Not anymore. You now know the secret that only top collectors whisper about. And the next time you sort your change, remember this: one overlooked 1964 penny changed a man's life, and the next one could be yours. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. 1967. The truth is, this coin almost disappeared forever. A simple 1967 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, the kind most people spend without a second thought, nearly ended up in a grocery store donation jar. But the man who found it had no idea he was holding a coin that experts now say could be worth up to $1.5 million. And the way he found it still sends chills through collectors today. It started with a small shoebox. Dusty, forgotten, tucked away in the back of an old garage. Inside that box was a lifetime of loose change, pennies, nickels, random pocket leftovers from the 1960s and 70s. Nothing special, or so he thought. But as he poured those coins across his workbench, one penny seemed to glow. It didn't shine like polished copper. It glowed the way a rare treasure glows when fate decides you're the person meant to find it. Collectors say the 1967 no mint mark penny shouldn't be rare. Over 1 billion were made. They should be common, ordinary everywhere. But this one was different. And the moment he saw the strange shimmer in the metal, the hair on his arms stood up. Something about this penny didn't belong to the world of ordinary coins, because 1967 was a chaotic year for the U.S. Mint. A year of rushed production, suspended mint marks, hurried mistakes, and quiet errors that slipped into circulation without a trace. And somewhere inside that storm of confusion, a handful of pennies were struck with a flaw so subtle, so hidden, that only the most dedicated collectors ever noticed. Those are the pennies now shaking the entire coin world. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. He slid the coin under a magnifier, expecting nothing more than a nostalgia trip. Instead, he froze. The lettering wasn't normal. The rims weren't even. There was doubling stretching across the date, 1967, like the numbers were echoing through the copper. Collectors call it a ghost effect. Dealers call it the $1,000,000 mistake. And most people miss it even when they're staring right at it. He didn't sleep that night. He kept rereading articles, comparing photos, convincing himself he was wrong. After all, who finds a $1,000,000 coin hiding in a shoebox? Who discovers a treasure that powerful by accident? Yet every angle, every test, every magnified glance pointed to the same impossible truth: this penny was struck on the wrong planchet. Somehow, during the Mint's frantic 1967 production, a leftover bronze planchet from an earlier year slipped into the presses, and a tiny printing error created one of the rarest modern pennies in American history. One man's pocket change had become a miracle. Word spread fast. Dealers were shocked. Expert graders rushed to evaluate it. And when the verdict came in, the room fell silent. Not only was it a Mint-era 1967 no-mark Lincoln penny, it was one of the finest known. A lightning strike discovery. The kind of coin that turns everyday collectors into legends. Auction whispers began circulating, 6 figures. 500,000. Maybe more. And finally, one stunned evaluator made the prediction that shook the community. This coin could reach up to $1.5 million at auction. But here's the part that still keeps collectors awake at night: nobody knows how many more of these exist. If one survived in perfect condition inside a dusty shoebox, how many others are hiding in old jars, dresser drawers, or forgotten coin rolls on kitchen shelves across America? And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The copper color is slightly off. It's deeper, richer, almost reddish bronze. The edges are sharper than normal, like they were cut with precision instead of mass production machinery. The word trust often shows faint doubling. Lincoln's profile has an unusual depth, as if he was carved instead of stamped. And on the reverse side, the lines of the Lincoln Memorial show tiny distortions, almost invisible to the naked eye, but unmistakable under magnification. Collectors who've seen this error describe it the same way every time: it looks like a coin frozen between two worlds, part 1960s copper penny, part experimental Mint error that should never have existed. But what happened next made the story even more unbelievable. As soon as word of the 1967 anomaly spread, collectors everywhere started digging through their own jars and boxes. Pawn shops reported older Americans bringing in grocery bags filled with pennies. Estate sales saw lines out the door. People who hadn't touched a collection in years suddenly felt the spark again, the thrill of the hunt, the hope that maybe, just maybe, they had a lucky strike waiting to be discovered. Dealers say this surge felt like electricity running through the hobby. A wave of inspiration sweeping across the country. Because for the first time in decades, an ordinary penny, a coin without silver, without a mint mark, without any reason to be special, had climbed toward a value usually reserved only for the rarest coins in existence. And yet, the story didn't end with that shoebox discovery. In fact, the most shocking part hasn't even been told. Months later, after the coin made headlines across collector forums, a second suspicious 1967 penny surfaced. This time from a man who claimed he found it in his late father's coin jar beneath the kitchen sink. Same strange copper tone. Same double date. Same distorted reverse design. And this second find confirmed something that instantly changed the market. These coins were not one-offs. They were part of a tiny, exceptionally rare batch of mint mistakes from one of the most unpredictable years in U.S. coin production. Collectors were stunned, because that meant something powerful. Something thrilling. Something that affects every single person listening to this story right now. If 2 have surfaced, a third is out there. Maybe 4. Maybe 10. Or maybe hundreds, still hiding in plain sight. But most people don't know what they're looking for. And that's why the next discovery almost certainly won't be made by a professional. It'll be made by someone just like you. And here's exactly how to know if your 1967 penny is the $1,000,000 variety. First, check the color. The rare version has a deeper bronze tone, almost old world copper, not the bright, modern shade most pennies show after decades of circulation. Second, look at the date under magnification. The rare error often shows a shadowy doubling on the 1, the 9, and sometimes the 7. Not dramatic, but noticeable when tilted under light. Third, examine the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. The rare planchet error causes slight distortions in the vertical lines, like the architecture is rippling or out of alignment. Fourth, feel the rim. The rare pieces sometimes have a sharper, more defined edge than normal 1967 pennies. Finally, trust your instincts. Every collector who found one said the same thing. Something about this penny felt different. And now, maybe you're holding one too, because the truth is simple, thrilling, and almost unbelievable. The next $1,000,000 coin discovery won't come from a museum, or a dealer, or a millionaire's collection. It'll come from someone who took a second look at the most ordinary coin in their change, and discovered something extraordinary staring back at them. Check every 1967 penny you find. Search every jar, every drawer, every dusty old box you haven't opened in years. Because the coin that changed a man's life, the coin that electrified the entire collector world, the coin worth up to $1.5 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today it can sell for nearly $1,000,000. Imagine, a single penny that sat unnoticed in a drawer for decades, now commanding jaw-dropping sums at auction. The story of the 1968 Lincoln penny is one of hidden mistakes, unbelievable luck, and collectors' dreams coming true. What makes this coin so extraordinary is a subtle, almost invisible detail, one tiny feature that transforms it from ordinary change into a $1,000,000 treasure. The Lincoln cent has been in circulation for over a century, appearing in every wallet and jar across America. But in 1968, something extraordinary happened at the San Francisco Mint. A batch of pennies was struck with a minting error so rare that only a handful exist today. Most collectors never even knew to look for it. And yet, the few who did have been rewarded in ways most people can only dream about. But what was the error? It wasn't obvious at first glance. This isn't a coin with a dramatic double die or a glaring missing element. No, this is far more subtle. It's a mint mark that shouldn't be there, an S mark struck in a way that makes the coin practically impossible to spot unless you know exactly what to look for. Dealers who first realized what they had in their hands were stunned. Some couldn't believe a simple penny could be worth so much. One man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 miracle overnight. Collectors were shocked when the coin surfaced at auction. Bids climbed faster than anyone could have imagined. Dealers rushed, sometimes fighting over tiny details of this coin's appearance. Every scratch, every gleam of copper, every slight anomaly mattered. The frenzy was unlike anything the coin world had seen in decades. And yet, for every millionaire made, countless others walked past the very same coin, never realizing what was hiding in their pocket. It said that the coin's rarity is tied to a single production error at the San Francisco Mint. A misaligned die left its mark, literally. The S mint mark, faint but unmistakable to trained eyes, was struck in a location so unusual that most collectors dismiss it as normal wear. But this detail is exactly why it can command prices exceeding $1,000,000 today. And the shocking part? There could be dozens more in circulation, hiding in jars, drawers, and piggy banks, waiting to be discovered. But here's the part that stunned the entire coin world. One collector found 2 of these coins in the same collection. Most people would never suspect that their seemingly worthless pennies could suddenly be worth a fortune. One man inherited a bag of pennies from his grandfather, planning to use them in craft projects. Instead, he stumbled upon history. And in less than a week, he had changed his life forever. Dealers everywhere are now scanning circulation pennies with magnifying glasses, searching for the slightest sign of this elusive mint mark. Some buyers have paid tens of thousands just for the chance to inspect a coin themselves. And when the true 1968 Lincoln penny appears in an auction, the world takes notice. The bids climb into the hundreds of thousands, then millions. And yet, the coin itself is no bigger than your thumb. The excitement isn't just about money. It's about history. Each 1968 penny carries the story of a minting mistake, a moment frozen in time, and the thrill of discovery. Imagine holding a coin that has survived decades, passing through countless hands, until it lands in yours, a tangible piece of the past, now worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. One common mistake collectors make is confusing it with other 1968 pennies. The ordinary Philadelphia and Denver strikes look almost identical to the untrained eye. But the 1968 SS Mint mark tells the real story. You need a loupe, good lighting, and patience to confirm authenticity. And beware of counterfeits. Dealers have seen clever forgeries attempting to replicate the S mark. The real coin, with its subtle misstrike and perfect proportions, cannot be replicated perfectly. And then there's the auction history. One of the few verified coins sold for an astonishing sum, over $1.2 million, and set the standard for what collectors would pay. Another barely circulated specimen recently sold for $1.7 million. That's right. A single penny, worth more than a luxury car, more than a small house in some towns, all because of a small minting error no one expected. The value of this coin is a reminder that even the smallest objects can hold unimaginable wealth. Here's the kicker: finding one doesn't require years of hunting or expensive equipment. Awareness is everything. Knowing exactly what to look for is what separates someone who discovers a life-changing penny from someone who passes it by. Focus on the mint mark, inspect the spacing, and watch for subtle misalignments. That faint S on the 1968 penny could be the key to $1 million fortune. Imagine sitting at your kitchen table, sifting through a jar of pennies, when suddenly your hand freezes. There it is. That tiny S mint mark gleams back at you. A wave of disbelief, excitement, and adrenaline rushes through you. You have just held a piece of history worth over $1 million. One coin. One life-changing moment. This is why collectors everywhere are obsessed with the 1968 Lincoln penny. Not just for its value, but for the story it tells, a story of chance, patience, and the thrill of discovery. Every small detail matters, and every coin tells a tale. And in this story, one lucky person could find a coin in their pocket change that changes everything. So, when you examine your pennies, look closely. Pay attention to the mint mark, study the die strikes, and don't dismiss anything as ordinary. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin was almost thrown away, yet today, the right 1971 no mint mark Lincoln penny has shocked collectors with a value soaring toward $1.7 million. And the most unbelievable part? It didn't come from a treasure chest, or a fancy collection, or a wealthy estate. It came from someone's everyday pocket change, the kind we barely glance at before dropping it into a jar on the dresser. It began with a man who didn't even consider himself a collector. He was cleaning out an old cigar box, just loose change he'd ignored for years. And there, mixed between faded nickels and dusty quarters, was a penny that simply felt different. The color was richer. The edges looked sharper. And when he tilted it under a lamp, it revealed a tiny detail that would change everything. At first, he almost laughed. A 1971 penny? What could that possibly be worth? But something pushed him to keep looking, some small, stubborn voice whispering that older coins sometimes hold secrets. He placed it on his desk, zoomed in with his phone camera, and noticed the first clue: no mint mark. No tiny D for Denver. No S for San Francisco. Just the year, sitting alone. But this wasn't unusual, or so he thought. After all, Philadelphia pennies from that era didn't carry mint marks. Nothing rare about that. So he shrugged, ready to toss it back into the pile. That's when the second detail appeared, so small, most people would never see it without magnification. The lettering. It seemed doubled. Not smeared, not damaged, doubled. A faint second impression on Liberty, barely visible unless the light hit it perfectly. He felt his pulse tighten. Surely it couldn't be real. Surely this wasn't one of those legendary errors. But the penny kept whispering its secret. He searched deeper. And the third clue stopped him cold. The date itself showed the same doubling. Not machine damage. Not normal wear. Something intentional. Something created at the mint during a critical moment in history. A moment that only a handful of collectors even know about. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. He sent pictures to a grading service, fully expecting them to dismiss it. Instead, he received a call. Not an email. Not a form response. A call from a specialist whose voice carried that rare mixture of excitement and disbelief. "Sir, we need to speak about your penny." The specialist explained that in 1971, Philadelphia produced a very small number of Lincoln pennies with a dramatic doubled die, one so rare, so powerful in its visual impact, that collectors had been hunting it for decades. Most were thought to be lost, damaged, or still lying unnoticed in jars, drawers, and forgotten collections, but this example was almost perfect. Sharp. Clear. Untouched by circulation. A survivor, and that's when the story exploded. Collectors were stunned. Dealers were scrambling to confirm the details. Auction houses placed immediate bids, each one higher than the last. Because the 1971 double-die Numismatic penny isn't just rare, it's mythic. A ghost coin. A one-in-a-generation discovery. The man who lived his whole life believing he'd never experience anything extraordinary now held a penny that experts valued in the upper six figures, with high-end estimates creeping toward $1 million. And in today's market, with collectors fiercely chasing dramatic errors, prices continue climbing higher, higher, and impossibly higher. But the real shock came when his story spread. A wave of collectors, many older Americans who'd been saving change for decades, began checking their old penny jars again. And some of them found similar coins. Not perfect examples, but strong enough that dealers were rushing to buy them, paying numbers an ordinary person could never imagine for something as small as a 1-cent coin. Yet even now, after all the noise, after all the bidding wars and newspaper articles, experts still believe only a fraction of the true surviving coins have ever been found. Most remain hidden. Waiting. Sitting quietly in basements, closets, shoeboxes, safes, and dusty canisters across the country. And this is where your story begins. Because every time someone picks up a 1971 penny, they think the same thing. It's just a penny. But the truth is far more dramatic. The minting process that year was chaotic. New equipment, worn dies, hurried production. And in that chaos, something miraculous happened. A few dies shifted at the exact wrong, or right, moment, creating a doubled impression so bold that you can sometimes see it with the naked eye, if you know exactly what to look for. But here is the detail most people miss, the single detail that separates million-dollar treasure from ordinary copper. The doubling on the 1971 Numismatic penny appears strongest on the letters Liberty and on the date. Not a soft shadow. Not a blur. True, clean doubling. Two distinct impressions, like a ghost image layered behind the first. When collectors spot this, their hearts jump. Because that's the signature of the legendary 1971 double die. And there is another clue, one that sends chills through collectors when they see it. The word trust in. In God we trust. Shows slight separation in the letters. It's subtle, haunting, almost like the coin is whispering the story of how it was born. Many people overlook this. Many eyes simply gloss over it. But those who know, they freeze the moment they see it. But what happened next in our story took the coin world by surprise yet again. On the day his penny went to auction, a quiet tension filled the room. Bidders sat forward. Phones rang. Online bidders joined from across the country. One man, the same man who once thought this penny was worthless, watched in disbelief as the number skyrocketed. By the time the final bid landed, the room erupted. Collectors knew they had witnessed history, and as experts reviewed the sale afterward, one phrase kept whispering through the community. If one man found one, there must be more. That realization ignited a new wave of treasure hunters. People began checking rolls of pennies at banks, searching jars left behind by their parents and grandparents, scanning online listings for unnoticed coins. And each time someone found one, even a lower grade example, it sold for thousands. tens of thousands, sometimes more. And today, as high-grade examples are nearly impossible to find, the possibility remains that one final, untouched, perfect 1971 double-die penny could appear. A coin that experts believe might cross $1.7 million if discovered. Maybe that coin is in someone's old safe. Maybe in a forgotten move-in box. Maybe in a jar sitting quietly behind your kitchen spices, untouched for years. But before this story ends, here is exactly how you can identify the real treasure. Look for strong, dramatic doubling on the date, especially the 9, 7, and 1. Examine the letters of liberty for clear separation. Check. In God we trust. For doubling on the T and the R, make sure the coin has no mint mark beneath the date. And above all, make sure the doubling is not flat, not smeared, and not the result of damage. True doubled dies have clean, raised edges, like two perfectly aligned shadows. If your penny shows those details, stop everything. Because you may be holding the next great discovery, and you may be holding a coin worth far more than its weight in copper. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This tiny penny almost ended up in a tip jar, but today, it can be worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that could transform your life. The kind of coin that makes collectors stop in their tracks and whisper, "I've never seen anything like this." And yet, most people never even realize it exists. The story begins in 1973, at the Denver Mint. That year, a tiny minting error went completely unnoticed. Only a handful of these pennies were produced before the mistake was quietly corrected, slipping into circulation like a hidden treasure. No one thought it would ever matter, until a lucky collector stumbled upon one in the unlikeliest of places, his own pocket change. Collectors were shocked when the discovery hit the auction block. The coin, a 1973 D Lincoln penny with an unusual strike anomaly, immediately attracted attention. Dealers who had been quietly watching for years realized this was no ordinary penny. It was $1 million miracle hiding in plain sight. One man's casual trip to the grocery store had unknowingly carried him straight into history. But what made this penny so valuable? The key lies in the D mint mark. While most 1973 pennies were perfectly ordinary, this mint mark revealed a subtle misalignment, a shift in the die that created a doubling effect almost impossible to spot. Most people who glance at a penny would never notice. But to experts, this tiny detail separates a common coin from a life-changing artifact. As word spread through the coin collecting world, auctions became fierce battlegrounds. Bids skyrocketed into the hundreds of thousands, eventually breaching the $1 million mark. Dealers were scrambling to find any trace of the coin, sending collectors into a frenzy of inspections and heated negotiations. Some coins were found in old jars, some slipped out of wallets decades ago, but every single one was a rare jewel. The coin's mysterious journey doesn't end there. One collector told the story of receiving it as change at a diner, unaware that he was holding over $1 million in his hand. He discovered it only when he visited a local coin shop out of curiosity. The dealer's eyes widened as he confirmed the error, and in that instant, a piece of history had transformed ordinary pocket change into a record-setting auction marvel. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it entirely. The alignment, the subtle doubling of the mint mark, the rarity of surviving examples, all combined to create a perfect storm of value. And the most shocking part? Experts estimate that only a handful exist today. The odds of finding one are astronomical, yet the opportunity remains. Collectors often describe the feeling as almost spiritual. To hold a 1973 D Lincoln penny with this rare mint error is to touch history in the most tangible way. You're not just holding a coin, you're holding a story, a secret that survived decades, a hidden gem worth over $1 million. Dealers are literally chasing these coins across states, inspecting collections, and offering prices that once seemed impossible for a single penny, and the intrigue doesn't stop there. Some coins have been misidentified and sold for mere hundreds of dollars, only to be rediscovered years later and fetch seven-figure sums. That's the secret of this coin. Its rarity isn't obvious, and only the trained eye, or an extremely lucky collector can spot it before it disappears forever. So, how can you identify one? First, examine the D mint mark on the 1973 penny carefully. Look for any doubling, misalignment, or unusual die strikes. Check the penny under bright light and a magnifying lens. The anomalies are subtle but unmistakable to the trained eye. Compare it with standard 1973 D pennies, paying close attention to the spacing and depth of the mint mark. Even minor differences can signal a coin worth millions. Avoid common mistakes. Do not assume that all 1973 D pennies are valuable. The majority are ordinary. Focus on die anomalies, unusual textures, or misstrikes. If in doubt, have a reputable coin grading service verify it. Authentic examples can literally change your life overnight. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. That coffee table jar, the old shoebox, even the coins in your pocket could hide one of these miraculous treasures. Collectors who recognize its value today are not just holding history, they're holding a potential fortune. A single, tiny penny could turn a mundane day into a record-breaking auction moment. Every so often, the coin world whispers about another discovery, another auction where a 1973 D Lincoln penny shatters expectations. And while most will never encounter one, the story serves as a reminder. Life-changing treasure is often hiding in plain sight. You just have to look closely enough, and know exactly what to look for. So search your change, inspect old collections, and remember, a life-altering penny might be waiting for you. One tiny coin, with a subtle mint error, has the power to make dreams real, to turn ordinary pocket change into $1 million miracle. The question is, will you be the one to find it? This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding something in your hand today that could change your life forever. A simple Lincoln penny from 1975, with a small D mint mark, has quietly become one of the rarest and most valuable coins in U.S. history. Some are now worth up to $1.9 million. And most people have no idea it even exists. It all started decades ago in a small, overlooked minting facility. A single press malfunctioned for just a few minutes, creating a penny that looked ordinary to the untrained eye. But inside, it was a collector's dream. Experts later called it a marvel of minting error and rarity. Dealers who have seen it in person describe the experience as almost surreal. Collectors were shocked when one of these pennies appeared at a regional coin show. It was tucked inside a jar of loose change, forgotten and ignored for years. The man who found it didn't even realize what he held. But the moment an expert laid eyes on the coin, jaws dropped. The tiny D on its surface was slightly shifted, a subtle difference that added millions to its potential value. Most people would never notice this detail. But this small anomaly is exactly what makes the 1975 D penny worth millions. One single flaw, one tiny misalignment in the minting process, created a coin that now commands attention from collectors around the world. Auction houses are already setting up private showings. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on every example they can find. And ordinary Americans? Many are still walking past it in their change jars. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A coin that sold for just a few dollars decades ago was suddenly listed at a staggering $1.9 million. Experts can't stop talking about it, and the story is spreading like wildfire across collector circles. One man's pocket change literally became $1 million miracle. Here's what makes this penny so extraordinary. The 1975 D Lincoln cent is part of a very limited batch where the minting press briefly malfunctioned. Only a handful of these coins exist, and the subtle D shift makes all the difference. If you don't know what to look for, it will look like any other penny in your pocket. But to the trained eye, it is unmistakable and priceless. Collectors often make one critical mistake: they overlook the placement of the mint mark entirely. Many assume it must be a rare date alone to be valuable. That assumption has cost some people millions in potential discoveries. In reality, this penny's value comes from the combination of the year, the mint mark, and the tiny misprint that turned an ordinary coin into a treasure. Imagine the scene when one of these pennies went to auction. The crowd was silent as the bidding began. Every collector knew they were looking at history, yet no one could predict how high the price would soar. And when the final hammer fell, it was a jaw-dropping $1 million victory for a lucky bidder who had the patience to search through countless coins. The story isn't just about money, it's about discovery, timing, and the thrill of the hunt. Every coin tells a story, and this penny tells one of luck, oversight, and the unimaginable fortune hidden in plain sight. It's a reminder that history can literally be sitting in your pocket right now. So, how do you know if you have one? Look carefully at the mint mark on the 1975 penny. Is it perfectly aligned? Or is it slightly off-center, with subtle irregularities that catch the light in an unusual way? The edges of the coin may also show evidence of the original press error, a tiny, almost invisible sign that separates a $1 million coin from a dime in your pocket. Compare it to trusted images of verified examples, and never rely on guesswork. One detail can make the difference between an ordinary penny and a life-changing discovery. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Some people will never recognize its value. Others will sell it, and their lives will change overnight. The choice between ignorance and discovery is yours, and the clock is ticking. History has a way of rewarding those who pay attention, and the 1975 Lincoln penny is waiting for someone bold enough to find it. Every time you check your change, remember this story. One simple glance could reveal the treasure that turns a modest collection into a $1 million fortune. The opportunity is fleeting, the prize is enormous, and the secret is still out there, waiting for the person who dares to notice. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding something in your hand today that could change your life forever. A simple Lincoln penny from 1975, with a small D mint mark, has quietly become one of the rarest and most valuable coins in U.S. history. Some are now worth up to $1.9 million. And most people have no idea it even exists. It all started decades ago in a small, overlooked minting facility. A single press malfunctioned for just a few minutes, creating a penny that looked ordinary to the untrained eye, but inside, it was a collector's dream. Experts later called it a marvel of minting error and rarity. Dealers who have seen it in person describe the experience as almost surreal. Collectors were shocked when one of these pennies appeared at a regional coin show. It was tucked inside a jar of loose change, forgotten and ignored for years. The man who found it didn't even realize what he held. But the moment an expert laid eyes on the coin, jaws dropped. The tiny D on its surface was slightly shifted, a subtle difference that added millions to its potential value. Most people would never notice this detail. But this small anomaly is exactly what makes the 1975 D penny worth millions. One single flaw, one tiny misalignment in the minting process, created a coin that now commands attention from collectors around the world. Auction houses are already setting up private showings. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on every example they can find. And ordinary Americans? Many are still walking past it in their change jars. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A coin that sold for just a few dollars decades ago was suddenly listed at a staggering $1.9 million. Experts can't stop talking about it, and the story is spreading like wildfire across collector circles. One man's pocket change literally became a $1 million miracle. Here's what makes this penny so extraordinary. The 1975 D Lincoln cent is part of a very limited batch where the minting press briefly malfunctioned. Only a handful of these coins exist, and the subtle D shift makes all the difference. If you don't know what to look for, it will look like any other penny in your pocket. But to the trained eye, it is unmistakable and priceless. Collectors often make one critical mistake: they overlook the placement of the mint mark entirely. Many assume it must be a rare date alone to be valuable. That assumption has cost some people millions in potential discoveries. In reality, this penny's value comes from the combination of the year, the mint mark, and the tiny misprint that turned an ordinary coin into a treasure. Imagine the scene when one of these pennies went to auction. The crowd was silent as the bidding began. Every collector knew they were looking at history, yet no one could predict how high the price would soar. And when the final hammer fell, It was a jaw-dropping $1 million victory for a lucky bidder who had the patience to search through countless coins. The story isn't just about money, it's about discovery, timing, and the thrill of the hunt. Every coin tells a story, and this penny tells one of luck, oversight, and the unimaginable fortune hidden in plain sight. It's a reminder that history can literally be sitting in your pocket right now. So, how do you know if you have one? Look carefully at the mint mark on the 1975 penny. Is it perfectly aligned? Or is it slightly off-center, with subtle irregularities that catch the light in an unusual way? The edges of the coin may also show evidence of the original press error, a tiny, almost invisible sign that separates a $1 million coin from a dime in your pocket. Compare it to trusted images of verified examples, and never rely on guesswork. One detail can make the difference between an ordinary penny and a life-changing discovery. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Some people will never recognize its value. Others will sell it, and their lives will change overnight. The choice between ignorance and discovery is yours, and the clock is ticking. History has a way of rewarding those who pay attention, and the 1975 Lincoln penny is waiting for someone bold enough to find it. Every time you check your change, remember this story. One simple glance could reveal the treasure that turns a modest collection into $1 million fortune. The opportunity is fleeting, the prize is enormous, and the secret is still out there, waiting for the person who dares to notice.